Coming up next on our program, you know how I have been following these unbought, unbossed candidates who are running for office. Remember, we just had on act.tv the Seize the House event with Marianne Williamson, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper, and her name just flew out of my head. Oh, Brianna Joy Gray. We hosted it and we supported a whole bunch of candidates who are running progressive campaigns without taking corporate donations, one of which is here with us today. Ally Dalsimer is joining us for an interview right after this. Ally Dalsimer running for Congress to represent the people of Virginia's 11th district. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Julianna. I love what you're doing, Julianna. We're loving what you're doing today. And can I just, before we get started, can I just speak? Because listening to Ben talk about how he didn't know about coffee, and you talked a little bit about that. I'm sure we'll get into this. Spent 30 years as a natural resources expert. 1 of every 3 mouthfuls of food that people eat is a direct result of pollination. And climate change, which is really climate weirding, which sets cycles off, is really impacting that. So it's coffee, tea, vanilla, honey, chocolate, tequila, blueberries, apples, almonds. It's 1 out of every 3 mouthfuls of food. It's in addition, an exacerbating factor is the loss of topsoil that's happening, especially throughout the middle of the country. And we will literally lose our topsoil in 40 years. So, this short-term profit-driven just attitude that you guys were just talking about is at the root of everything. And watching what's happening in Ukraine and thinking people are only focused on the short-term economic gains of how they can make money from oil, opening up the XL pipeline or whatever. I don't even know the word. I just don't understand how people can be so small-minded and so short-sighted as to not understand that an existential threat actually means a threat to our existence on this planet.
It boggles the mind.
Reasons I'm running.
Yes, it boggles the mind. And, as we interviewed a whole bunch of candidates during the Seize the House, not all for one district, but for districts across the country. And I was really happy that you were willing and able to come on the show today, because it's not usual that you see people who, like yourself, have been a co-founder of multiple national conservation initiatives, someone who has the policy background in environmental conservation, run for office. Can you first talk about what you've been doing up until this point, and then talk about the push that made you make that change to really just run to be the leader, as opposed to advising the leaders as you did as one of, Obama's White House Climate Council folks?
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. So, I started at a small nonprofit environmental foundation that leveraged public-private funding to do high priority conservation initiatives. Which basically is a lot of a word salad for we tried to save black-footed ferrets and gray wolves and, creatures that were at the brink of extinction, the bald eagle, that kind of thing. And I worked my way up over the years, doing a number of positions to becoming head of DoD's Natural Resources Program. And DoD has 25 million acres of land that they steward on behalf of the American people. And they have some of the most dedicated biologists ever. Just amazing people. And, it is the civilian side. It's not the military side. But we were able to be very successful. I was able to be very successful because I reached across those aisles and worked with them and tried to find the common ground and the mutual benefit of doing things. So, for example, invasive species. And for those who don't know, an invasive species is something that's not native to an area. And when it comes and it just explodes and it basically kills everything, think of kudzu, or something like that, just takes over. The kudzu, for those who don't know, is called the vine that ate the South. And so you have these species that are invasive. And so, for example, we had there was a parachute training exercise that was supposed to happen on an installation, and somebody went out to ground truth the area and found it was covered in a plant called yellow star thistle. And yellow star thistle is an invasive plant that has 1/2-inch spines on it. So you can't drop a person into that. They'll be torn up. And so that kind of thing, working with the military side to say, hey, we need to deal with these invasive species. We need to make sure that we're keeping our land in high quality. We need to make sure that we're reducing fire hazards, whatever the issue was for that particular installation. And we were able to leverage those because they wanted to drop people into the area, and we wanted to make sure we were maintaining the biodiversity. So
that's unfortunate. I mean, that's good. But
DOD is also one of the first, though, to tackle climate change, right? It was the Navy, and their concern was, passage over the Northern Passage, melting, and Russia. And the Navy was on the cutting edge of it. Turns out they were right.
Turns out they were right.
But here's the problem, right? And this is the second half of your question and why I'm running. The problem is that, so I worked with these folks, and we did all this policy, and we put these things in place. And then the Trump administration comes in, and as part of their top 100 things they're going to accomplish, was like 30 of them that were anti-environmental. And I'm literally, my job was eliminated by a Trump appointee because I was pushing a climate agenda. I went down to Interior, and I fought for our ability to continue to manage migratory birds when they wanted to roll back the MBTA. And so I sort of won those battles and lost the war, and my position was eliminated due to lack of funding.
Well, yes, obviously.
Because they're broke. But the point was,
there's golf courses that need to be built, Allie.
What's that?
There's golf courses that needed to be built.
Right. Exactly. Actually, we worked with the golf course people too, because there's golf courses. So what did we do? We reached out to them, and we created pollinator and amphibian and reptile habitats to surround them. So we reduced their chemical loads by 50%, that kind of stuff. So in a way, it's tinkering around the edges because the military's doing what the military's doing. But we did our best. And more importantly, we worked with partners at the state, national, and international levels to make things happen. And we had a force multiplier, to use a DoD term, in benefit at an eco-regional scale. But to get back to why, right? I'm literally watching the Trump administration roll back everything, undo all the policy work that I had worked so hard with so many others to put into place. Climate was a perfect example. And realized in order to make a change that's going to stick, that's going to have a long-term benefit, it's got to be done at the legislative level. You have to put these laws in place. It's really hard to undo a law once it's in place. It's super easy to undo a policy. You just say, oh, here's a new policy. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the big picture reason. The small picture reason is a little more detailed, and I'm sure you've talked with lots of candidates. It's like one day you're like, yes, I'm going to run. And the next day you're like, there's no way I'm doing this. And then the next day, like, yes, I'm going to run. And the next day it's like, I'm not doing this. So it's,
you
it's
really are, especially running, with this not taking corporate donations. You're basically saying, I'm going to run a campaign that is moral. And so in running a moral campaign for the people of your district, and I would say the people of the country, because you're running not just for a local office, but you're running for Congress. So that is the law of the land. That would be all of us. And I just think you're basically, you and the others who are doing this are saying, I'm willing to have this target on my back because these things are more important to me than, my personal whatever. And I do commend you greatly for having it takes a spirit, a strong spirit to be able to do that. And I'm happy to be able to support you and to give you as much of our audience that we can at this moment. Talk about your district. What is going on there, and are they resonating with your environmental message?
Yeah. So first, let me just quickly say thank you for allowing me to be on your show and giving me your audience. I think that's great because you're right. I'm not taking any corporate pack or dark monies. I'm running a people people driven grassroots campaign. And the reason, and I want to talk about that, the reason is because I genuinely believe in my heart that profit perverts motives. So there's no room for profit in the public discourse, in a public good. And that includes the environment. It includes healthcare. It includes the jail system. It includes the incarceration system. It includes education. Profit should not be a motive there. And in terms of the other grassroots candidates, I want to be part of a movement. We've got this small handful of people right now, Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, Alhan Ormar, AOC, they're trying to do stuff, but there's like 6 of them, right? We need to get like 30 more of us in there so that we can finally start making an impact, because everybody talks about campaign finance reform. And as soon as they're elected, they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't really mean it. And
yeah,
so
I
we
wondered why that always fell off the table.
Yeah. What's that?
I wondered how and why that always fell off the table.
Funny. Yeah, funny. Well, like the guy I'm running against, Gerald Connolly, he took $38,300 from Leidos last quarter. That was one of his contributions. And you're going to turn around and tell me that he doesn't have some sort of incentive to try and make sure that Leidos and other war industry, profit-making companies are going to, oh, shocker, oh, I'm sorry, he was just in Brussels saying that we absolutely need to arm the Ukrainians. What do you know, right? So it's ridiculous. In terms of this district, Virginia's 11th is just outside of Washington, D.C., primarily Fairfax and Fairfax City. And it's a relatively affluent community, but it's definitely a tale of 2 cities in terms of have and have nots, right? You have all the people who are your federal workforce, your corporate people, but then you've got the entire infrastructure of people that support those people. My neighbor is a construction worker. His wife cleans homes. The person across the street works in a travel agency. It's the people who support and maintain our entire infrastructure. And as everyone who is watching this, I'm sure knows, they've seen their real pay shrink in terms of real dollar terms. Rents are skyrocketing. Housing prices are skyrocketing. Fairfax is already 150% more expensive than the rest of Virginia. But we don't have a higher minimum wage. It's still $9.50 because, of course, everybody can live on that.
Netflix just emailed me saying they're going to be $15.50 a month. That's an hour and a half of work for somebody, that is ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't live the prices, and who can afford, who's going to buy Netflix is a superfluous thing that you can toss aside, but food isn't. And the price of food is skyrocketed.
Food is skyrocketing for a lot of the reasons we've discussed. And it's not only that, but what about, broadband, internet, cell phones? These things are not really luxuries in today's age. These things are required in order to function and to have a job and be functional in our modern society. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot that we really need to be looking at in terms of messages resonating in this district. I have found that it differs depending on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to people who are house secure and have a job and insurance, then climate is actually their number one concern, climate and COVID. And of course, recently we're Ukraine, but in terms of broad issues, those are the big things. Healthcare, climate. But if I'm talking to people who are really struggling to pay the rent, who really don't know if they can buy meds because they have to buy food, their big concern, of course, is healthcare. That's a common thread. But they're more concerned about a living wage. They're more concerned about housing prices. They're more concerned about gas prices and about food prices. They're concerned about the immediacy of now, because what happens 5 years or 10 years from now is irrelevant to them if they're not sure they can make it to next year. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on who we're talking to, which is why this inside-outside approach is so important, why we need activists on the ground pushing things, and why we need legislature, people in, making legislative decisions, people in all levels of government, from local, state to federal, trying to push policies that try to actually genuinely help people and the public good, to be public servants. People go into this because they're supposed to be public servants. That means to serve the public. and not your corporate interests.
Ally, I have a concern that sort of those tale of two cities. On the one hand, the housing secure, the folks with insurance, they might care about the environment, but they may or may not be willing to give up some of their luxuries, which is going to be required, in my opinion. I would be happy to hear your thoughts, in order to have a secure environment. And then on the other side of the coin, the folks who feel like the system has failed them, they're working hard and they somehow still can't get ahead. They can't jump these barriers to entry that have been getting higher and higher. They are sort of prey for these authoritarian movements, the Trump movements, to come and to steal them from a true populism party. Populism meaning the best form of populism, not the Trump crazy populace. What are your thoughts here?
So first, I think you're spot on, except that when I've talked with people, even those who are housing secure and, whatever, solidly middle or upper middle class, I'm resonating very much with, and I said it in Seize the House, I am the most qualified natural resources expert to ever run for Congress and would be the only one if elected. I've written climate policy. So that resonates with people. And, a lot of these people they're driving their Priuses, they're walking around, they care about the environment. They shop at Whole Foods. And so they resonate. The ones who don't resonate, frankly, are the more right-wing people who listen to the Tucker Carlsons of the world and think this is all a bunch of hooey, and they really don't. I'm never going to win them over. Because they
don't waste your time. Yeah.
No, they've believed a false narrative. They don't want to believe that they have been brainwashed in any way. No one wants to think that they've been wrong, that they've been duped. And the only way that it's the 70-30 rule, right? 70% of them will eventually realize it when the evidence is overwhelming, and 30% are still never ever going to recognize it, no matter how overwhelming the evidence is.
Like the folks who are like, I'm not getting a vaccine no matter what, and they're on their deathbeds. That's those folks. Oh, that's
I had it. I'll just take an aside and then I'll go back to the rest of your question. I had this conversation with this woman the other day because in Virginia, the schools dropped their mask mandate as of today because we now have a Republican governor, Youngkin, he ran on the anti-mask thing. It was very interesting, this conversation, because the woman I was speaking to was like, you can't force me to wear a mask. That's just government, whatever. And it's my choice. And I was like, you don't wear a seatbelt? You don't drive the speed limit? You don't do any, do you drive drunk?
And she was like, I hadn't thought of it.
Yeah. So, it's a foolish, specious argument, whatever. I personally believe that the Republicans are brilliant because they're changing the narrative and having people focus on superfluous issues like whether it's a freedom of choice to wear a mask versus the fact that they are
deregulating,
undermining the entire security of our country and the people who live here, as well as the people who live on the planet, and that there's only one planet. So it's a smoke and mirrors game, and you can't pay attention to that. The second part of your question was about the messaging with those who are really food insecure, housing insecure, and really struggling. And a lot of those are especially young people. And I have to tell you, they are the core of my base when I have talked with them. My biggest challenge is simply name recognition. The incumbent has been in there for forever. And so me getting the word out, is the biggest challenge, which is why if anyone's watching, if you're in district, please volunteer with us. We need more door knockers, people calling. If you're out of district, throw us some cash. The reality is that, like Julianna said, I'm not taking any corporate PAC or dark money. So until we get true campaign reform,
I'm sure the Democrat that you're running against in the primary is taking money from out of state. They all are. I can't be sure, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've been covering these independent races, and most of the people who are running against a centrist Democrat or a corporate Democrat, they're taking money from places that are outside of from corporations that would benefit to keep them seated. So we need to, I'm hoping you can take this video that we're doing and we can send it to environmental groups across the country, because wouldn't it be wonderful to have an environmental policy advocate out there speaking? I mean, you don't have to like go look it up and write a speech and figure it out. You just already know what needs to be said and how it needs to be said. And that would be very, very helpful to us as we fight sort of this climate fight.
Right.
Your district is mostly Democrats, right? So if you win the
Yeah.
primary, you'll likely win the general.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the things that the incumbent, his name's Gerald Connolly, most people probably don't know who he is. He's actually passed one piece of substantive legislation in well over a decade in office, so people really don't know who he is. But it's my little gouge there.
Well, we have to be honest about what these people are doing or not doing. So gouge away. Go ahead.
Thank you for that. So interestingly enough, he's obviously very well known in the district, just because he's been around so long, and he's actually spreading a narrative that the fact that I am challenging him means that I am putting him at risk in the general. That's his first thing. And second of all, that I am risking flipping this district in 23 or 24, because look what happened with Youngkin. And first of all, there's no risk in the general, because this is a D plus 32 district, which means about 75 to 80% of the district are registered Democrats. It's one of the bluest districts, I think, on the East Coast. And in terms of 23 or 24 in Youngkin, you know what? Youngkin won because Democrats lost suburban women, primarily because suburban white women. Yes. I'm a suburban white woman. How is my running going to risk losing suburban white women? The fact of the matter is that he's spreading a false narrative because he's concerned about this challenge. He's genuinely concerned about this challenge. And, we actually,
and he should be,
because we obviously, any challenger is, has an uphill battle. But the fact that he is, and this is the truth, he has threatened local Democrats in the Democratic Party. He has threatened them that if they openly support me, that he will work to make sure that they lose their committee seats and that they never advance in party politics.
I think you need to write down, if you do me a favor, tweet out and tag me and tag act.tv who supports him with money. I'm sure you probably already know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we'll spread it around that there is a bought corporate Democrat who is running against an unbought environmentalist who obviously, I've gone through your website. We don't have time to go through all the issues here, but it's not like you're just running on the environment. You've got housing, you've got disability access, you've got healthcare, you've got education, you've got incarceration, you've got all the things that need to be dealt with. This isn't your one and only platform, just like a lot of the corporate lawyers, their one and only platform isn't helping, corporate law or whatever, so
right.
Yeah, you got
absolutely.
all the right
universal health care, universal pre-K, because the fact is, as everybody here knows, a child's zip code before they're 8 is the single biggest determinant of their success, which is just BS. Taking profit out of the prison system, which is so broken. But on the environment, my opponent takes money from oil and gas. I've signed the No Fossil Fuel Pledge, the Activate Virginia Pledge. I'm a Virginia Green New Deal champion. I will never take fossil fuel, never. And I think using this conflict, this war in the Ukraine as a reason to say that we need to drill in public lands, which would be a nightmare on a global scale. I don't think people understand the key role that our natural areas, which are so few, what a key role they currently play. They're already insufficient. There's the Amazon rainforest. There's an area the size of Great Britain being devastated every year so that we can have cows, so that we can have more beef. Frankly, I've been a vegan for a long time. I did not go there because of environmental stuff, but the environmental benefits of skipping even one meat meal a week are huge. So, we need to be looking at things on a multi-pronged scale, right? Think globally, act locally. I grew up with that mantra, right? 70s, the environmental movement, women's movement, think globally, act locally, make a difference in your daily life, and elect people like me into office so that we can make those differences on a national and global scale.
I do want to say that it's important to go to Ally's website and read about her past, your history as a person, because you have a military father, so you are not like a tree hugging. Oh, hey, I like tree hugging. I think it's a good thing. But you understand about issues around national security, that it's not necessarily always about hugs and kisses, right? You have that understanding. You have traveled internationally to Africa. You understand what global poverty is about. You have such a depth of knowledge from your life history that I do encourage everyone to go to Ally for Congress. It's right over here in the thing, and either make a contribution, read a little bit more, send Ally. You can send this video to people who are in districts. But again, remember, every race is a national race at this point. So a couple of bucks, I'm making a plug for you, Ally, a couple of bucks could go a long way. I do want to say, I hope it's okay to do this, but my condolences on the recent, very, very recent passing of your mom. Has her death put your run into additional context for you?
So I was the primary caregiver for my mom. She had previously been in a rehab facility and suffered actual neglect and abuse. And so I brought her home, and we have a small home, but she was basically living on our sofa, and I was taking care of her. And so, the one thing she kept saying was, don't worry about me, just focus on the campaign, do your call time. And of course that was ridiculous, because, she was more important. And she did just die a few days ago, and I took a few days, but she was my biggest supporter. She was the person who was my biggest cheerleader. She did everything she could. She told me I should use her illness as a way to raise money, that she would do a video with her so that I could raise money from that. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. She's like, no, do it. Use me. And I was like, oh my goodness, Mom, really? Let's just focus on you right now. Let's bathe you, let's feed you, let's get your meds, whatever.
Well, she was an example of an unjust.
She was a kick-ass, tough old broad, is how she called herself. She's like, I am a kick-ass, tough old broad. And she started amazing programs, women in development programs, literacy programs. She put her money where her mouth is. And it was amazing. And in terms of context, I really seriously thought about discontinuing the race in order to focus on her. And when I told her that, she got so upset with me.
She's like, I'm going to die.
I am now I've now doubled down. And you know what else? I'm tired of being bullied by the good old boy network that is part of the establishment Democrats. It's just not okay to put women down. We've been putting up with it for too long, and it's time for us to band together and say enough is enough, and stand up to that good old boy network, embrace the men who want to support us, and work together as a coalition to get shit done.
Ally Dalsimer, you put it as well as it could possibly be put. Obviously, my condolences. I mean, from your life, what people are going through, and from your work, you have worked tirelessly over the course of your life to make sure we have an environment that both we want to live in, but also that our children can continue to thrive in. So I thank you very much for what you've already done. I guess we here at ACT.TV and everyone's watching will have to become your greatest supporters in the vacuum left by your mom. We certainly can't fill that shoes, but we do support you, and we will be following your campaign. What day is the primary?
Thank you, Juliana, for that. I appreciate it. The primary is June 21st, but early voting starts in mid-May. So we really need to get the word out. And I'm just going to plug, we really do need funds. We want to put a down payment on a headquarters. We have a site want to do some mailers, want to make our team robust. So every amount helps, as you said.
Thank you so much, Ally, for being with us. I really appreciate it. I'll send you this
Julianna.
video and you can send it to your people so they can get to know you.
Will do. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. You're watching Act TV. We'll be right back. All right. That was good. I enjoyed that tremendously. I enjoyed having Ben Dixon on. It was really weird because I didn't know he was going to be here. I tried to confirm, and there was a problem with getting a hold of him because, as you know, he was out in Florida and an area where apparently the internet is not working so good right at this moment. So that was pretty awesome headline segment. Really enjoyed that. And then, I mean, just imagine what the world would be like if we have people like Ally, and there are a lot of them, running for Congress and winning those seats. And I think it's possible. I know it's possible. A very blue district. So go and support her. It's going to be awesome. We have another candidate running from right down the street from where I live, a progressive campaign against a corporate Democrat. His name is Muad Hezri. He's going to be on the program on Thursday. Remember, this show is on Tuesdays and Thursdays right here, wherever you are watching it. What else? Does anything else need to be said? I'm sure there is. Take it easy, you guys. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. Let the love flow start at home. I'll see you Thursday. Thanks for watching.